The objective for today is to solve mixture problems, and the learning targets are to find and use percentages and to use proportions. Example number 1. The mixture problem is as follows. You have a 720 milliliter solution of acid in water, and it contains 12% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 9% solution? What the problem is asking is this. If you start off with 12% of this container being acid and the other percent, the remaining part of it, is water, how much water would you have to add to this container to make that 12% turn into 9%? That means if there's more water in the container, if you add more, the acid is less of a percentage of the total. Step 1 to solve the problem is this. Find out how many milliliters there are in acid in the container. You know there's 12% of the entire 720. So do 720 times the decimal form of the percent, 0.12. When you do that, 720 times 0.12 comes out to be 86.4 milliliters. That's how many milliliters in acid there are in that container. Now remember, that 86.4 is 12% of the 720. But how much water needs to be added in order to make a 9% solution? So if you add more water, it takes up less of a percentage. What you need to do is this. Set up a proportion of 86.4 over x and set it equal to the fraction form of 9%, which is 9 over 100. In other words, 86.4 is 9% of some number that we don't know yet. That's what we're going to solve and find. So cross multiply 9 times x and then 100 times 86.4. And then divide by 9. 8640 divided by 9 is 960. Now that represents the total contents of the jar after we add in some more water. Yeah, so you have to subtract. 960 is our new amount after we've added water. That's the total in the container. You have to subtract what the total was when you started, which was 720. When you do that, you're left with 240 milliliters, and that represents how much water was added to the container in order to make that percent go from 12 down to 9. Example number 2. A 600 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 11% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 8% acid solution? Step 1 is to find what 11% is of 600. We want to find out how many milliliters of acid are in the container. So 600 times 11 comes out to be what? There should be a decimal point there, times 0.11. 66? Yes. Yeah, so it's 66. That's 66 milliliters. Now that 66 milliliters of acid is no longer going to be 11% of the total contents because we're going to add water and it's going to go down to 8%. So we have to set up a proportion. The 66 milliliters will go over what? X. And we set it equal to what? 8 over 100. So cross multiply to get 8x equals 66 times 100 and divide 6600 by 8. You come up with 825. Now that 825 represents the total contents of the container after we've poured in water. But we started with 600 milliliters, and now the contents are up to 825. So we do what to find the difference? Subtract, and what is it?
225.
225 milliliters of water had to be added to bump that percent from 11 down to 8. Practice number 1. A 770 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 15% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 10% acid solution? A 770 milliliter solution and 15% of it is acid, so we must do 770 times 0.15. When you do that, you come back with an answer of 115.5. Now that 115.5 milliliters is no longer going to be 15% of the contents, it's going to be 10% of it. So 115.5 over x should equal 10 over 100. So 10x equals 11550, and divide by 10 to get 1155. That's the new contents in milliliters, but we started with 770. So 1155 minus 770 should be 385 milliliters. Practice number 2. A 360 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 21% acid. How much water needs to be added in order to make a 19% acid solution? The solution of the practice, we must first find out what 21% of 360 is. So 360 times 0.12 in your calculator, that gives you an answer of 75.6. Now 75.6 must go over x and set that equal to 19 over 100. The reason for this is this 75.6 is no longer going to be 21% of 360, it's going to be 19% of some number we don't know. Cross multiply to get 19x equals 7560, and 7560 divided by 19 is 397.8947368. If you leave that in your calculator and type in, well, actually just leave it in your calculator and hit minus 360, you'll come back with an answer of 37.89 milliliters. Practice number 3. A 120 milliliter solution of acid in water contains 35% acid. How much water needs to be added to make a 20% acid solution? For the solution, since we're running out of time, the final answer should be 90 milliliters.